I'm Katelin.
And I'm Anna, and we are so excited to bring you the first episode of Two Blondes and a Printer, a podcast where we talk everything from customer communications, print, mail, business strategy, technology, innovation, career development, and of course, the sexy side of print.
Did you know that G2 lists 84 vendors in the print management software space alone? That is too many options. And so today we're talking vendor selection as well as hitting on what it's like to be a woman who dominates in this very male-dominated industry that is print, mail, and technology in general. And before you gentlemen give up on us and hit a different podcast, we really do think it's going to be interesting for you as well. And as we go, we also have a very lovely guest joining us to help us cover both of these topics. This is Maria Haight, the CIO of TGI Direct and a 30-year veteran in the IT space.
We had to say that, did we? Okay.
So she started doing it when she was born,
Exactly.
Which is even more impressive.
It is. That's some natural talent.
And because we know that time is tight for everybody, I thought we would just dig into it right away. So again, Maria, thank you so much for joining us. I guess my first question is, what were your thoughts when we first reached out to you about being on this podcast?
So I have to tell you, ladies, podcasts have become a part of my life in the last year. Why? Because you're looking at probably one of the biggest Philadelphia Eagles fans that there is. And the New Heights podcast that the Kelsey brothers do every Wednesday morning drops, and I'm listening to it. So I was so excited that I'm going to be part of a podcast. So thank you so much for asking me to be part of this with you.
Of course. And I mean, we're definitely going to give a plug to that podcast because we're big podcast fans as well.
Go Birds!
So. Listen, I live in Wisconsin, so I can't say that, but you know what? I like team loyalty, so that's fantastic. But no, thanks so much again, Maria. We hope we can make this nice and painless for you, and we're so excited to let you tell your story. And our big thing is it's so much more than this industry is so much more than ink on paper. And as we've gotten to know you, you're a trailblazer, and we can't wait to listen to a little bit more of what you have to say. So
yes. So maybe to kick things off, we want to just hear your story. Give us a little bit of a rundown. You've been in the tech space for 30 years. What originally drew you in? Why'd you stay?
So yes, I have been in IT for a long time. And it started back in the day, you guys, when I actually worked for a library system in the state of Kansas. And internet became this thing that we all started talking about in corporations. But it was actually a really big thing with libraries and universities. That's how they shared data. It was very flat data, right? It wasn't beautiful websites and things like that. And even before that, I was studying at school. I started out as a psychology major, always minored in computer science because there's a little bit of cool stuff that you can actually complete something. Turned my life into business management and went on, but it always was around computers. And so when I got this great opportunity with the Kansas library system to work on the internet, it opened up doors that I never thought would open up for me. And I then got into a lot of different industries doing digital marketing from an IT perspective. And that has blossomed, as you guys know, over the last 20 plus years. Everybody didn't have a website at one point in time, believe it or not. That makes me feel really aged. But anyway, now, that's just a no-brainer, right? And besides all the other digital and what AI is doing with chatbots and the ability to self-service, right? So this took me a lot of years through a lot of different great companies. Kellogg Company, I was in financial services for a while. But what attracted me to TGI, to bring you full swing here, is that we do a lot of print communications here. We do some digital, but we like to make sure our portfolio will always be open to anything our clients need. Print, foremost, we do it well. We solve a lot of really complex problems for our clients in the print area. But we also know there are other things too from an omni-channel perspective that they want to do some of this and some of that. And who brings that to the table for them? Often it's two different vendor solutions. And we wish, we'll have that opportunity to bring that to them in one stop.
Absolutely. Let me ask you, Maria, like, and I hope that this doesn't come off the wrong way, but you were able to see in your career the transformation from no websites to, if you don't have a website these days and you're trying to run an effective business, you're not going to do it. Like, right? That's not good. So tell me a little bit about that. And I'm just genuinely curious, because to not age myself, but like we didn't have laptops until I went to college. So like I got to see some of that transformation, but tell me more about being in the business world when you didn't, and then all of a sudden it's like everyone's got a smartphone. Like how did that even feel?
And again, I'm feeling a little old now that you've asked me that question.
No, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, I just really...
No, it's all good. I think what was amazing for companies is that when you put a website up, and I don't even know if people even think about that now, all of a sudden you became a global brand. Whether you were ready for that or not, right? You know how to welcome that out that said, come to me from anywhere. And a lot of companies, I would tell you, I think back in the 90s and the early 2000s, had to make it look like they were well-organized machine by being able to put opportunities out through a web or digital platform, right? So that meant everything in the back end had to work globally too, if you were able to open up that door, or even across the United States, right? So, maybe we serviced only in Pennsylvania, and now we opened up the door that made us, by day one, across the US, globally, if we could handle that. And a lot of companies weren't ready to handle that problem. They were used to the brick and mortar, typical sales funnel, walk in the door, write a job up, and now it changed. And so I think that was a tremendous change in thinking for companies, but also a huge opportunity, right?
Absolutely. And then when you think about, because we had mentioned we're going to talk a little bit more about women in this specific industry, or this workplace, or even tech in general, I'll just say, when you think about that 30-year transformation for you, like, I mean, I would assume that you've seen so many changes in that as well. And again, I'm much older than Katelin, but I just, it's so good, I think, to learn from some of this stuff, because it's so compelling, because we just think of like the normal that we live in day to day versus what was. So I'm just curious how that started. And like, were you the only girl in some of these computer science classes in college?
Absolutely. I was one of the only females. And funny enough, when I was in high school, I joined the boys golf team because that's all there was, and I wanted to learn to play golf better. And so they were wonderful and accommodated me to do that. But then it became the golf team, right? It wasn't just boys, because before then I guess girls didn't raise their hand because it was labeled boys, right? Mm-hmm. And so it was never a fear for me. It was almost more of a challenge. And so even in IT and being surrounded by males predominantly, right? Even up until the last 10 years or so, it's been exciting. It's been challenging at times too. And I'll tell you something that hit me early on in my career. I read an article, and I don't even remember the full context of it. And I think it was, as a woman, being respected in the workplace when you're in a male-dominated industry such as IT. And it said, don't ever be the lady that bakes the cookies or bakes the brownies and bring them in, because you'll always be looked at as a traditional female secretary, mom, whatever. You will never gain the respect. And it never dawned on me that just to do something nice for my team could be looked at as a very female, encompassing kind of thought. And I thought, I'm never going to do that again. And not that I didn't want to. It was just that I didn't want to be looked in that way, and it never dawned on me somebody else might.
I've never thought about that. I've baked a lot of cookies too. Whoops.
I haven't. I brought in wine or cases of beer, maybe. Kind of true. But no, Maria, that's so interesting, because, the fact that you had to think about that instead of just go and do your job and be yourself or be who you are authentically is it's just something to be that's I think it's a lot of growth that we can have from an experience like that, of like, you know what, it doesn't matter what persona you're filling. It's just be authentic and be yourself. And if you want to bake the cookies, I say bake the damn cookies. And if I was in your office, I'd be thrilled about it. But yeah, that's it. It's interesting to me that you even had to think about it that much further.
Right, and I'm going to tell you, ladies, that was easily 20 years ago that I read that, and it just stuck with me from that point forward. But I would tell you too, I think there's also been a very positive piece of being a woman in technology. Often, there's that stereotype of IT, very introverted, hard to work with the business because there's a different mind thinking that goes with very strong technology types, right? And I think being a better listener, trying to articulate, because I often played the role between the client and my developers at times as I grew in my role and wasn't doing the day-to-day, because that's a whole nother challenge in itself that maybe we'll talk more about, is as you grow in IT and you go through those changes to get to be a CIO today, there's a lot of steps along the way, and some of those were harder at other times. But I do think sorry, stereotyping men or women, but there's just sometimes women are a little bit more astute in listening and hearing requirements better, and wanting to not immediately solve, but hear it all and then solve. And so I think that served me well over time compared to some of my colleagues.
Absolutely.
Okay. What do you think one of the bigger challenges? You said, there's a lot of steps along the way. What was one of the hardest ones to navigate?
Yeah, I think IT very much feels this, and maybe other areas do too. But when you go from being, I'll say, the it girl or the it guy who's got all the answers, and you guys know this, you probably have somebody that you go to and like, I know that person's going to get me the answer that I need for this problem I'm having with my computer, right? And letting go of that, because as you grow into managerial roles, you can't be the it girl, the it guy anymore. You have to let others have that and learn how to manage them, and still feeling enough value add, feeling like your peers and your managers still see what you can bring to the table by not being the solver always, but your value add to. Those were scary years. There was a lot of scary through that I could still feel valuable to my team and valuable to my boss, and how to adapt through that. So that's something I coach a lot on.
I feel like that's good advice though in any role.
I think so.
I think, Katelin and I are both in sales. And I think that the listening piece that you said is huge. I think even in personal relationships, listening is so important, and we all have something that we want to say. So we're thinking about that instead of truly listening and trying to understand. And then the next piece that you said about, it's hard to not want to be the person that's needed.
Requires a lot of trust.
Personal, right?
Yes.
So I think that those are
be able to delegate. And I know I've struggled with that because I want to control everything. I mean, I'm a type A, managerial OCD little freak. And so to be able to trust my team and be able to delegate, it's hard. No one really teaches you how to do that. There's no class on that.
But like you said, Maria, in order to grow, it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah. And technically, I think people will want to downplay your capability if you are not the leading in that whatever skill anymore, right? Database administrator, coder, whatever. As you have to start pull out a little bit, and those skills get a little softer, right? Because you're not doing it every day in, day out. People want to challenge you. And I don't know if you feel that in other industries, but in IT, they want to challenge you. And so, that was some of those growing pains. There was really scary at times. And so I try to mentor to others, especially women who are looking to how to make sure they feel they have a path moving forward. But there are those stages, and understand that, and everyone goes through it.
That's a great answer. And I think it's a perfect segue to exactly what Katelin's gonna talk about a little bit next.
Mm-hmm. So what initiatives, I love this question, what initiatives have you implemented to support and promote women in technology and at the different companies you've worked at?
So every company I've been in has had something that I've been able to put my toe into. Back at Kellogg, there was the Women of Kellogg, and it wasn't just IT related, but of course I may have shied over to the technology women a little bit more. But there were true employee resource groups that were made available for people on different interests, and Kellogg is a large company and be able to facilitate something like that. So that was a wonderful experience. But I've always looked into the community as well, whether it was IT professionals in some way. So here, being with TGI Direct, being near Detroit, there are a lot of organizations that I can be a part of. The Michigan Council for Women of Technology is one that I'm starting getting more involved in right now, and I'm helping with what they call their Leadership Council. So we'll be looking at about 45 women and matching them up with CIOs from different organizations and doing like a really day and a half of just helping them think through, I see myself as a CIO one day. What do I need to do to get there? And so that's great. Being, I'll say one of the few women still in some other IT organizations, and just using my voice and talking to other women and being in mentorships. If there's a mentorship opportunity, I will reach out and say, I'd love to. Doesn't mean I don't still want to be mentored too. And so I want that as well sometimes. Even that's just networking at this point, other female CIOs and having that opportunity. So I seek those out. Even if they're more male dominated, I find my sisters and we hook up and make sure we know how to get in touch with each other.
I love it. I need to ask this, and this isn't even on our list of questions, but how do you find the time to do all this? Because we all know how busy you must be. And I'm like, I should probably do more of this mentoring, or something, not meant like, and I'm thinking you have a C in your title. I certainly don't. So can you talk about that a little bit, Maria? Like how have you learned to manage all of this?
It's a good question. And I would say, as my children have gotten older, it makes it easier. Our last child is a senior in high school this year, and so my heart is being pulled, because that part of my identity is going to change dramatically, and so it's just natural, right? When we don't have young kids, and you feel that guilt of traveling for work, staying late, going to now a 7 o'clock meeting, whatever. It was harder at times to do that. I would admit, as the kids have gotten older, it does free it up more. But I've also tried to find, Anna, things that really are meaningful to me. And sometimes I've had to try something on and say, this isn't probably worth my time as much as something else would. And then I just delve in 100%. Or I, every 3 years, maybe I try something else, and see if that's where I want to be now. And some things are just, how much are you going to volunteer of yourself? One meeting a month should be doable, right?
Sure.
Now I just put myself on a board, and so does that mean it's every week 3 hours? Like, whoo, can I take that on with something else? So it just kind of changes, right? Over the years, I think, of what you can take on.
Absolutely. Well, it's super impressive either way. I just I don't have children, but I'm in awe of the women that can do it all somehow, and I'm just like, good for you. And that's I think I love hearing different strategies or different ways that you've been able to delegate your time, and what you said about really being passionate about the things that you are doing, then it doesn't feel like work, and then it doesn't feel like you are pulled in so many different directions, I would imagine.
Absolutely. I agree.
And then just kicking ass like you do anyways, so that's fantastic. So you kind of already touched on something that we were going to talk about, but I feel like we can kind of get into the next section, just as far as, you talked a little bit about women having these strong networks and building communities, and that's something that you are really passionate about. Katelin, I know you wanted to talk a little bit more about, what that looks like on the professional side.
Yeah, so you've grown into this CIO role, very exciting, and now you're sort of in that position to actually cultivate vendor relationships and pick out who's going to be your technology vendors. And we were wondering, can you share, an example of a successful vendor partnership and what made it successful? Then we'll get into the really juicy stuff about a negative one. I'm excited for that too.
Well, and vendor management is another area that I would say I'm passionate about, and I've had some amazing vendors over the years. You know, some who've become friends even right over the years as those relationships business wise ended. Didn't mean I'm not in touch with those people, right? And you just never know when something else is going to open up, and now I need them again, or they've moved on to something else, and that's now a great opportunity. So I think vendor management truly comes down to relationship building and expectation setting. To me, it is no different than an extension of my own team, right? And so, one of the things that a vendor said to me one time when we went through difficult situations, Maria, you're fair. And I always want to be fair, right, to my employees and to my vendors. And so we set expectation, and when it's not met, let's talk about it. What are we doing? What's the plan? This is what good looks like to me. So there's no ambiguity around it. Like, let's be very clear. Again, employ your vendor. And now, if you're not meeting that after we've talked and I've given you ample time, again, being fair, now we have a problem we have to address, right? It's now business, and I've got to find the right partnership and the right solution, and we got to move forward. And it's not being afraid to say it's been long enough and make that next step.
That's incredible. I love that so much, just because I'm typically in a space where I'm not the buyer, I'm the seller. And I mean, I have the cell phone. I probably have a text message right now from one of my old like clients slash just friends that I used to work with. But that's something I take pride in, and I think that the fact that you on the buyer side also take pride in that, I think that's a really good thing. And then the next thing I was going to say is, you know, the expectation piece of it. And I'm talking about even personal relationships. I think in any relationships, the expectation piece is so important. Caitlin's laughing because I'm like going through a very messy divorce right now. But like, I think that in any relationship, these expectations are seriously, it can make or break the relationship. And you have to be honest about the expectations, and then honest about what you can provide. And then I guess that's where the trust is built and that type of thing. But yeah,
And
I
you
just
hit
think
it. It's about honesty, because I will ask any of my vendors or new relationships that I have with vendors, just tell me the truth. If I ask you to put lead in a balloon and I expect it to float, and you say, yeah, let's do that, I'm going to want to wring your neck later, because we both know the balloon's not going to float. Say, if you really want it to float, how about we try helium, or, you know, what else? Like, be my helper here. I'm hiring you because of your knowledge, expertise. So bring that to the table, and don't sign up for something that you're not really good at. I'd rather us determine that now. We go find somebody else to help with that piece of it. And then you're not frustrated with me, and I'm not frustrated with you, and it all worked out well, and nobody lost time and money in the process, right? Just bring it up front, and we'll figure it out together, right? And the responsiveness. I think one of the things that customers can often feel sometimes with vendor solutions is lack of response, which feels like, to what all of us, they don't care. Didn't hear from them, asked 3 times, didn't hear anything back. They must not care. I don't matter. And I never want any of our clients to feel that way. And I surely don't want to feel that way, especially when it's an issue that I want resolution on. Please don't go running away now, right? So, give what you want, right? So as I give to our clients, because this is what I want from my vendors, right?
Mm-hmm.
love it. Let me ask you this before we get to the negative one. Like, would you rather have, I think I know the answer, but would you rather have bad news immediate, like as soon as possible, even if it stresses you out a little bit, or even if it's not going to be a problem? Or would you rather like have someone completely assess what's going on and then reach out to you as far as the responsiveness?
It's a little of a loaded question for IT, right?
That's what I'm asking, because I'm like,
yeah. If something not looking good, I want to know right away, and let me weigh in on how much time we're going to spend to evaluate before we react. Because, I hate to say it, but that's probably one of the reasons why I have let some vendors go in the past, is that they held on to the cards too long, and then I was in such a bad place by the time it was exposed. That's not good relationship that's not watching out for your customer, and that's going to put me in a really bad spot, right? Whether that's lost revenue, client, now that I need to go do collateral damage on, I'm like, I wish you would have let me know, and then we could have defined together how much more time we're going to go spend figuring out how impactful that is, before you made that decision without me. So yeah,
For
I
sure.
think you better tell me right away.
Oh, I appreciate the honesty on that, because I was really curious about how different people feel about that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody wins here every day. The sky is falling either, and it's really not. But IT,
Which
we pretty
IT
much
has a
know.
tendency to do sometimes too.
Sometimes, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that's like a perfect segue then into have you had experiences, like you said, you did have to let some vendors go.
Yeah.
Would you consider that, like a negative experience when it comes to the vendors, as far as, no response? And then you're like, what am I paying you for? I would assume that that's the feeling.
Well, that's exactly it. And I think with any vendors over, different companies or over the years, it's been that either there was lack of response, there was lack of accountability, or there just wasn't solutions coming forward to help us grow. We were really, like spinning your tires in the mud, like we're not getting anywhere. And we've now done 6 months, 9 months, a year. That's been adequate time for you to solve that. Sometimes it's personnel, right? They say we've lost so and so, and they were a rock star, and we're looking to replace so and so, and then replacement just doesn't happen, and other people are trying to get to that. That can't be now my problem to solve for you, So, it's just things like that typically.
For sure.
I think that come around.
All right. So, all right, when it comes to researching and finding a vendor, we all know we Google something and then there's 15 Google search pages. And if you don't have someone giving you a referral, where do you start? In this age of just infinite choice and infinite information, and then at the same time, everyone saying similar things on their website, and we all use the same marketing lingo. And so, like, what's what? So how do you sort through it all as someone who needs to make those decisions?
Yeah, good question. I will typically first, if it is truly like I'll say shrink wrap, but bigger than a shrink wrap product, I'm going to reach out to, my sisters and brothers in the industry. And does anybody use this? Does anybody have any, pros or cons? If that's not the case, then I'm just going to come in and do my own due diligence with probably putting my own questions together and what I'm expecting to hear, whether that's based upon having done that before or wanting to look across at least 3 or more vendors who are providing that. So I at least have something to compare against. I do always ask for some kind of customer reference. Please just don't tell me the ones that was an excellent situation for. I know that's who, you bought dinner for last night, and that's okay. I'll talk to them too, but can they be close at least to something I've gone through? Is it a similar situation so that we at least are coming from the same perspective of this migration, this, new thing that we haven't done before, and they didn't do it before either. If I could at least get a customer reference that's similar to our scenario, then I, will ask for that to be another opportunity for me to hear more about them. But yeah, I think that's really it. A lot of the networking, and this is where I think a lot of IT professionals should look for opportunities, not even within their own industry. I think you're making a mistake if you're only talking to others in your own industry, because best practices don't just live there, right? If you're looking for good customer service in X industry, and you're not talking to, I don't know, Chick-fil-A, Amazon, whatever, you're missing out, because those are some of the most stellar solutions of great customer service. So what are they doing right? Doesn't mean it won't work for your industry too.
Right. Well, innovation doesn't happen in a bubble, so that makes a lot of sense.
I want to write that down, because that's brilliant, Maria. And that I feel like we all, just human nature is to do what's more comfortable to us. So it's really easy to stick with, if you're an IT professional, let's stick around here, let's stick around this area. But I think there's so much to be learned from all these different industries and the challenges. The only question I wanted to ask you is, if, let's say, you're looking for a vendor and they do say, listen, this is a customer that left us, but we still have a good relationship with them. If they were like, listen, they blew it on XYZ, would that break the deal for you? Would you? No.
Not at all. I mean, my God, that kind of transparency, that the situation was still relevant to what we're doing, and I think you might learn something from them. Wow, you've already, helped me feel that you've got my best interest in mind. You're not just trying to, blow smoke and mirrors and, all that fun sales stuff, right? So
For sure. No, I think that's brilliant. And I was going to ask, Katelin and I had talked a little bit about, talking about some red flags when you're looking for vendors. But to me, from what you said, if they're just giving you all great references, I don't know that that's a red flag. That might be like a amateur hour mistake,
Sure.
but like,
Sure.
I think that that's huge as far as just being super transparent of like, hey, we have made mistakes because everybody, and I'm sure you've had to tell your clients, we make mistakes, especially during the pandemic and when all those things were happening. So are there any other red flags as far as looking for vendors?
Selling of futures. I've had too many years now of sales calls, and I need to see it. Like, show it to me that it really exists. I don't want to hear about it. Just in your pretty PowerPoint, right? Like, and so I'm visual anyway, but I want to see it in action, and I want to know how have other customers use this, so that there's some sense of it's not just it got released yesterday and we're hoping this works out great. That maybe it's been tried and true a little bit. So if you can't give me that, and I think it's also great too that you've seen a lot more in sales that they're starting to bring the sales engineers in who can speak my language, right? So when we look at something here at TGI, there's a breadth of us looking at that solution from all different perspectives. And then, Maria comes in and she's the Debbie Downer, and she's like, I really want to know like how this works and what the platform needs, and what are my users going to expect, and show me screens, and and all that, and that's not as sexy, but it's what's needed, because I'm going to be the one at the end of the day that's going to be somehow on the hook for making sure this works well for everybody. So I got to make sure I say the insurance market. I tell all my people, I'm in your insurance market. Bring me in and let me make sure you're going to be okay, or we understand it's going to do this. No one's signing up for that, you guys. So make sure that's not on your expectation list. This is what we're going to get. And if you're okay with that, then I'm in and we'll go.
Awesome. I love it so much. And this is like how we're gonna sign off. We've eaten up so much time already, and we thank you so much. So this is the question, and I'll let Katelin ask it because I'm sorry, I just jib-jab too much on this deal. But, we ask every guest that we're gonna ask this question. So Katelin, I'll let you kind of jump in there.
Right, thanks, Anna. So what is the sexiest part of print?
Sexiest part of print by far, you guys, is the technology. It's getting cooler and cooler all the time. And if you're not up to speed right now, you are missing out on some sexy stuff. So I'm stoked. I'm excited about it. And I certainly think, our staff here at TGI is very excited about it. So technology is sexy.
I love that. I mean, I think we're both in agreement considering we're in the technology space, so you're not going to get a different answer from me. But no, thank you again so much. It was great having you on. And, as always, we'll do our little cheers. So cheers, ladies, to the first pod. All right.
Congratulations to both.
Thanks.
Thank
And
you
of
so
course,
much.
and then, to all of our listeners, if you want to have a drink with us and chat anything and everything about print and technology, contact us at twoblondesandaprinter@gmail.com. All right, guys, I think that wraps it up.